baby blanket. And he handed it to me and he said, "Mom, I don't need this anymore." And I remember gasping, like, what do you mean you don't need your baby blanket anymore? He's like, "Nope, I don't need it anymore." And I instantly went through this. It took me a week to actually accept this 5-year-old's decision that he no longer needed his baby blanket. I washed it, I folded it, I snuck it back in his bed. I would hand it to him when he went to bed. And every day he's like, "Nope, I don't need it anymore. I don't need it anymore. I don't need it anymore." They don't tell moms out there how hard it is to raise sons. And in this video, I'm live, so this is just a conversation video, once again in my office by the water because my son is out here rowing again. They don't tell moms how hard it is to raise sons, and more importantly, how hard it is to let them go. And so in this video, we're going to talk about the slap in the face, boyhood, and how to find help. So ready? I'm going to sit and I'm going to prop up my arm because my arm's going to get tired, I can tell. So I am the mom of 5 sons. And the slap in the face when you're raising a boy is the crossover point between when they're little and when they're no longer your little boy. It's a slap in the face because you don't see it coming. And you certainly don't expect it to happen so young, so early in a child's life. And you know, as I'm putting together the 3 stages of homeschooling series and training and master classes and all that stuff, and I'm in daily contact with so many homeschoolers, and I keep hearing moms struggle with their young boys, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-year-old boys that are no longer their little boy, and they don't know how to deal with it. And I think it's because as a culture specifically, we don't talk to moms about the hard fact that our little boys are men in little bodies and they're just waiting to come out. Now, your boys, each one of them are going to be different than each one of my boys. But you probably, like me, mentally expect your sons to be your little man, your little boy, your snugglebug, your munchkin, long past when they actually want to be that. I know I did. So in my head, I had mentally thought that until they hit puberty, they're still little kids, they're still little boys, they're still mamas, right? And the reality is very early, timer's going off, very early, 3, 4, 5, the little boy goes from being a snuggle bug, I love you, mama, I need you, mama, that kind of boy, to suddenly it's like, no, I do it myself, or they get frustrated or they get angry. What's happening is very quickly they're going from the infant to toddler to young child stage, and they're starting to want to mimic manhood. And as moms, we need to recognize this, and we'll talk about some of the things that we can do in a second. Don't be surprised, and don't cling and like pull your little boys back into infant stage where they need to be nursed and coddled and cuddled and all that stuff. You can still hug and kiss your sons, and I suggest that you do for as long as they'll allow, and even past that. But hug and kiss your sons, but don't coddle them. Don't enable them to be weak and mousy and wimpy. And I'm gonna probably ruffle a few feathers. That's okay. I'm gray enough to withstand it. However, when your kids are little, they need a different kind of love and nurturing that they will as they get older. So once your boys kind of flip the switch, and you'll recognize it because they start struggling against you. They start questioning everything that you're saying. They start pushing back when you're trying to do things like just give them a hug or just tell them how much you love them. This is the stage, and it happens really little, that you need to not stop saying I love you, but you need to start incorporating man language. I respect you. I see you. Oh, I can't believe how much of a helper you were today. You need to start talking about the fact that they really helped you today because they used their muscles, and you can see what a fine man they're going to grow up to be. It's going to feel counterproductive as a mom with a 4-year-old to be talking about their future madness. However, it's necessary for their self-confidence and their ego and their mental just stability. Now, I had 5 sons, have 5 sons. 2 of them are on the manly side of the spectrum. You would expect to see them out in the wild carrying an axe, and very likely they are out in the wild carrying an axe. They wear the red flannels, they wear the jeans, they fell trees, they dig holes, they shoot arrows, they're manly men, chuck tomahawks, all the stuff. And then the other 3 are strong men with more soft characteristics. There's the writer, the musician, and the scientist. They're not necessarily going to have free time and decide to go shoot their bow or throw a tomahawk or something. But they're all confident men. And the reason that they're confident men is, first of all, they were raised by my husband, who is a manly man. He is a confident man. And that rolls downhill as you are raising your children. So the slap in the face comes when your little baby boy starts to yearn to be a man. The same way that if you had a daughter, hypothetically speaking, because I don't have daughters, but as a little girl, I remember hitting this stage where I wanted to start to act out and behave like the future woman that I wanted to become. I always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. I always wanted to be a housewife to take care of and love on and encourage and strengthen my husband. I always wanted to do that. And as a little girl, I remember acting out these things, loving to be around my mother, loving to be around the kitchen, helping with around the house, etc. And so the boys, no differently, as little boys, start to want to exercise their future manness. They want to carry the big load. They want to dig the hole. They want to solve the problem. They want to be respected. They want to be seen, and not because they're soft and squishy. So as women, we need to think through the lens, and a good example is if you think through movies that have very strong characters in them, where they have a myriad of characters. The one that came to mind as I was getting ready to prepare this today was the movie Braveheart. And when you look at William Wallace, played by Mel Gibson in Braveheart, you see a well-faceted man. And so his character, we'll talk about in a second, but there are other characters in this movie that one is kind of cowardly, the other's kind of wimpy and weaselly, and then you have this William Wallace character. And he exudes things like testosterone and strength and grit and courage and bravery, all those things. But he is also loving and tender and poetic, right, with the love of his life. And so when I think about when my kids were little, and I think about what kind of future men were my husband and I raising, it was through the lens of something like that, where we're raising men to be strong and courageous and bold and daring, all the things. Willing to stand in the gap for others, right? Men that serve and all the things. So men like that, but also that are loving and kind and generous and responsible and diligent, all the things. It doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen by chance. This world today is polarly opposed to manly strength. And I want you to know that if you're raising sons today, it is okay to lean into boyhood. It's okay to lean into manhood as they hit their teens and beyond. And the way that that looks is that they don't need activities that would be stereotypically done with little girls. They need activities that require. Now, if you have daughters, don't tune out and don't think, oh, she doesn't know my girl. My girl does this, this, and this. Of course. But I'm talking to the moms of boys. I'm a mom of boys. I'm telling you that it is okay to challenge your sons, to give them work that is just a little bit too hard, and to watch them persevere. It is okay to hand them a shovel and have them dig a hole just because they've got extra energy. And then when they're done digging the hole, have them fill in the hole with the dirt that they removed from the hole and experiment with and think about, well, why doesn't the dirt all fit back in the hole the same way? And then the next day, dig the hole again. It's okay to give them challenge. It's okay to allow them to climb the tree higher than your heart can handle. It's okay to have them ride their bicycle down the hill without holding the handlebars. We don't want them to get hurt, but boys have this in them that they need something to conquer. They need a challenge. And a little bit of death-defying courage is really healthy for young boys. Now, I'm old enough that when I was a kid, we would leave in the morning and we'd come back for lunch, and then we'd come back again when the street lights came on at night. And kids kind of ran wild in a sense. But the boys would do things like climb the highest tree and jump off the hills, and they need that. You know, there was a season where some of our sons were sledding, and in the neighborhood they would go sled in the snow, and they'd come back. They had conquered Dead Man's Hill. Dead Man's Hill was a very steep decline that then pivoted and jumped to go over a ravine to land on the other side. And they loved it. They thought it was the best thing. Now, did I walk down and vet the safety? I did not. In hindsight, I probably would have. However, it made them walk a little taller. You know, when you have a car full of groceries, you have your children, you have your boys carry the bags. You have them carry the heavy things. And not because you can't. You allow and train your boys to do things like cut the onions as you're preparing dinner, to flip the pancakes. I was just sharing this with another mom this morning. It's okay to give them responsibilities and to allow them near the stove when they're 3 or 4, supervised. We used to push a chair right up to the oven, and I would stand right there, and the boys would carefully help me stir the pot, flip the pancakes, etc. They had knives that they could help dice the vegetables, and they felt so helpful, and it makes them like puff up their chest and just feel that much better about themselves, that they are a valuable part of the team. You know, girls want to just stereotypically enjoy the experience and have wonderful conversation. Boys want to feel needed, and they can tell the difference between when they're being pacified and when they're being appreciated. And so we need to give our boys opportunities to be appreciated. And the way that you do that, mama, is you step back. You get a jar that is sealed tight, and you ask your boys to open the jar. Not because you can't do it, but because they need to feel needed. I remember one time a friend of one of my sons was over, and she was a tomboy, and she was carrying her knife, and she was showing me her knife, and she was like, "Oh, my knife is so cool. Do you have a knife?" And I'm like, "No." And she goes, why don't you carry a knife? Don't you think knives are cool? And I'm like, yeah, knives are awesome. I go, but watch this. Does anybody have a knife? I need to, and 5 knives appeared in a flash. And I go, oh wait, no, never mind, I'm good. And then I turned to her and I said, it's more important to me that the boys feel needed than I carry a knife on my own. And so I lean into giving the masculinity a place to breathe in the house. I ask for help to open things. I ask for help to lift heavy things. One of my boys recently, just this past week, there was something wrong with the car, and I offered to put the fluid in the power steering. And he's like, Mom, He goes, I can do it. I go, I know you can. I go, babe, when I met your dad, I was in the process of changing the power steering and the water pump in my car. It's not like I can't do this myself. And he laughed, ho, ho, ho. But I give them the opportunity to do the things that help, that show, that they can look to and they can say, I did that. It's really important for boys to be able to do that. So what they don't tell you about raising boys is that it's a slap in the face, because we want to hold on to them a lot longer than they want to be held. But that what they also don't tell you is that a little bit of danger and giving them hard work and requiring that they bust a move outside, dig a hole, chop down a tree, stack wood. One of my boys' favorite memories was, our youngest was about 9, so they would have been between 9 and 18, something like that. My husband took them to the hardware store, bought them all axes or hatchets, and then they went down and they all split wood together. And in my head, I'm thinking, he's 9. You don't give a 9-year-old an axe. Like, what are you thinking? And yet, the men did the men thing, and they came back, and all the boys were like, this, I did that. I provided wood for the winter. Boys need that. They need to be providers, they need to be protectors, and we need to give them opportunity. So what do you do? How do you get the help that you need to raise sons? Number one, I'm going to tell you to give yourself permission to lean into boyhood, to lean into manhood, and to look around for examples of what manhood should look like in your mind. It'll probably be in the form of movies or programming, and you can talk about the different characters and the different characteristics, and you can point out to them what characteristics are important, and just have healthy discussion. But then you can also look around in real life and look for champion young men, and then talk to their parents, because those parents will have tips and tricks and advice that you can model your own life after. And then the last thing before I go is just to remember that it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. It's something that takes years to invest into, and it is okay. It is okay to start pulling out the inner man within your young sons right from the time that they're 3, and they hand you their baby blanket and they say, I'm done.